Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July 5th iteration of the Kubernetes 128 release team meeting. These meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so if you don't want to be on, feel free to keep your camera off. There'll be a time after the meeting if you don't want to be on the meeting. And then I'd like to inform everybody that these meetings are subject to the CNCF terms of code of conduct. So be sure to adhere to those. For those new to these meetings, those pretty much just boil down to be nice to everybody. I've dropped the link to the meeting notes in the meeting chat, and if everybody who's in the meeting could add themselves to the attendees, that would be super helpful. I'll pause and give people a minute to do that. All right, it does not look like there's any open discussion meetings or any open discussions items now, so we'll skip that part and move right into the SIG enhancement, or the the team enhancements. All right, Atarva, are you here for the enhancements updates?
Yeah, so everything looks good from our side. The current status is green. There are no new updates, and the code freezes in approximately 2 weeks from now, the 19th of July. So yeah, that's the latest milestone that we need to acknowledge, right? Yeah, that's it.
All right, CI signal?
Hi everyone. So our current signal is yellow because we have been observing a failure on the master informing board from the last 6 days. It has in total failed 46 times till now. Other than that, we had a failure on the master blocking board, but it was fixed in a PR. So we'll be observing for a few runs to make sure the fix is good. And V 1.28 alpha 4 is scheduled for tomorrow or day after tomorrow. It depends on the time zone. And Mansi will be giving the go signal for that, no signal for that. So that's from our side. And we would require attention on this failing issue on the master informing board.
Yeah, one of my other hats is in SIG Windows, where this failure is. I'm going to be looking at this today. I was out of office for a couple of days, so I'll hopefully get to the bottom of that soon. Sorry about that. Thanks. Bug triage?
Yes, hello everyone. Bug triage status is green. We don't have much updates this week, but we have started to reach out to issues and PRs that we think that might be at risk as the code freeze is coming up. So we are constantly tracking them. And that's it for us.
Great. Docs?
Yeah, our status is green, and we finished reaching out to all cap owners at the next docs deadline, and that's just following up on that.
Okay. Release notes?
Yep. For release notes, it's also green. We've just merged in the Alpha V3 PR. We'll create the Alpha V4 one in the coming days. And we have updates from 6 orgs for major themes. No other major themes, I think, but yeah, all for now.
Okay. Comms?
Our current status is green, and this week we'll be working with the 6 to opt in for future blocks and update that.
Okay. Release branch management?
Hi, status is yellow because one of the master blocking job was in red until this morning. So I'm waiting on CI signal to give me the go for tomorrow.
Okay. EA, Leo? I don't see any updates.
Sorry, I was on mute. I don't have any updates. But keep in mind, if you have any problems throughout the release, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Also, I already gave this update last week, but the retro is coming up. So keep this in mind, add your items to the retro. This is a very good opportunity to improve the program, to also share your thoughts, what is going well, what is not going well. So use this meeting. Looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
All right, great. Grace, release lead?
Yep. So we had our first APAC meeting on last Friday. Shout out to Brad for running it. We will have APAC meeting every Friday now. So our next one is in 2 days. So we are going to do intros into different sub team, and we're going to start off with intro to enhancement with Atharva. If you want to share your screen or anything, Atharva.
Let me stop sharing my screen too then. All right, go ahead.
Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is just a basic introduction of the overlayout of what an announcement team looks like, what responsibilities are included while tracking the announcements. So, okay, why isn't that working? Yeah, so the enhancements freeze generally happens on the 4th week of when the release starts. So until the announcements freeze, the announcements team's job is to keep track of all the announcements issues that are being opted in. I'll talk more about what announcements freeze means later on. But after announcements freeze is over, there is around a 4-week gap approximately, after which the code freeze happens. And the announcements freeze generally works between these two freezes. So all the works that happens that is included with the announcement stream is generally between announcements freeze and code freeze. So what is an enhancement? So enhancement is basically a feature that the user or the developers wants to is hoping to inculcate in the Kubernetes project. So I have mentioned a bunch of bullet points, but what the general idea of what an enhancement is, that something that might affect the Kubernetes project in general, which may be the Kubernetes core components like Node, or the architecture or the API components of the Kubernetes. So and which might also require some graduation criteria. That means a feature which might need which is affecting the users, which will require stages like alpha, graduating to beta, or stable. So this is basically an idea of what an enhancement is. So what not is an enhancement? So enhancements, as I said, enhancement is just a feature which might affect the Kubernetes core components, but the basic sometimes the enhancements might not be related to something that's just a basic fixing of some basic few lines of code, or which is just tweaking some changes to make the tests pass, or something that is implemented by the CRDs, or something that is creating new CRDs. So this is what not an enhancement is. So what so we now know what an enhancement is. So how do a developer or how do a user propose an enhancement? So the process for the Kubernetes release cycle is introducing or proposing a KEP. So KEP means a Kubernetes enhancements proposal. So it is a standard way, so that the it's a standard way in which you can you can properly format what your announcement is proposing to change or proposing to introduce. So as an announcement, while proposing an enhancement, the developer should follow a particular guideline. So I have linked the link in the chat just a second. So yeah, so is it visible, the slides right now? Because the internet is lagging here right now.
Yeah, it's
We see the
visible.
cap slide. Yep.
Okay. So the KP is just a bunch of questions and answers and a bunch of layout of what the KP, what the announcement is trying to propose, like what is the design that is going through that you want to propose, or what are the factors that may hinder the growth of this enhancement, like is it causing some exhaustion of some resources that might not be good for the Kubernetes project, or things like that. So it's a very curated format where you want to be the enhancement proposal owner should be as detailed as possible to have a better understand to provide a better understanding to the reviewers and approvers in order to smooth the process of tracking an enhancement. So we talked about what a KEP is, but what is a PRR? So PRR basically is a team. So PRR means a production readiness review team. So what the production readiness review team does is it ensures that whatever announcement that the developer or the user is trying to propose does not hinder the growth of the does not hinder the growth or does not cause lack in the release. So which might be which might some of the many drawbacks could be that something is causing blockage in the into the release cut, or something that is degrading the resources of what the enhancement Kubernetes enhancement generally looks like. So PRR team generally looks at the points of view of from the points of view of, is the enhancement observable, is it scalable to maximum extent, and things like that. So in order to get in order to successfully track an enhancement to the enhancements freeze, which I will be talking about later, one enhancement should always have a PRR, the production readiness review done, and it should be approved. And after it's approved, then only we as an enhancements team would be able to track that enhancement. So what does an enhancement team generally deal with? So what we do is we track all the enhancements that have opted in by the SIG leads label. So the SIG leads usually opt in the enhancement that they want to include in the current cycle by applying the current milestone. Like for this milestone, it would be 1.28 milestone, and they would have the enhancement issue would have a lead opted in label on it. When an enhancement has a lead opted in label, the GitHub project board that we have automatically adds that issue onto our project board, and the enhancements team then tracks all the issues that have opted in through the enhancements board, and reach out to all the enhancements that have opted in, and ensures that the enhancement satisfy the criteria that needs to be accomplished by the code freeze. So and after the code freeze, and before the code freeze, it should comply with the enhancements freeze. So what is an enhancements freeze? I'll talk about what before an enhancements freeze, what does the task look like, and what does a task for an enhancement team after the enhancements freeze look like. So before an enhancements freeze, as I said before, it should have a lead opted in label and the current milestone applied to the GitHub issue. And as when we outreach to that particular enhancement, we as an enhancements team ensure that the KEP, the Kubernetes enhancements proposal should have the up-to-date milestones and status applied to it. So it might include the status to be currently implementable, and having the latest milestone, that is for the current release, it would be 1.28, and it should have the latest stage information also. So if the announcement is tracking alpha, then it should have alpha stage under the kep.yaml field. And after the kep.yaml is configured and up to date, we enhancement stream track what is the KEP following the latest README template that we have for the release process right now. So the README file would have a bunch of fields like the test plan section, the graduation criteria, the design plan of the KEP, and a production readiness extensive questions of the production readiness review. So all these enhancements should have a detailed KEP, and it should satisfy the current KEP template. And after we check that if the KEP README file is up to date and the kep.yaml file is up to date, we'll then go ahead and check if the PRR review, the production readiness review was done or not. If it is pending, we will mark this announcement at risk, and if it is done, then only after all the before all the criteria are satisfied, and if the PRR is done, then and then only we will track the announcements, which would be good to go for the enhancements freeze. So what is an enhancements freeze? Enhancements freeze is generally a milestone before which generally all the enhancements that want to opt into the release should be added by the SIG-LIDs. So, and after the announcements freeze is done, we usually won't add more enhancements to the GitHub project board, or we won't add more enhancements to the enhancements tracking process. But a way to still add your announcement to the announcements tracking for the current release would be proposing an exception request, which I would be talking about later. But once the announcements freeze is done, so there might be two cases that the announcements team have announcements team have outreach to all the announcement issues, and they have ask the announcements owners to fill in the information that is needed to currently to be in compliance with the current criteria of the announcements freeze. And now if the announcement has successfully completed all the criteria, it has all the information up to date that is needed for the announcements freeze, and it has also a PRR review done, then we will track that announcement for the announcement freeze. And that means that the that particular announcement is good to go further for further milestones like code freeze or test freeze or further processes. But if the announcement does not successfully fulfill those criteria, it has remaining PRR, or it didn't meet all the requirements, then we would mark that announcement as removed from milestone. And what that means is we will basically remove that announcements from our announcements team tracking process. After the announcements freeze, if your announcement does not meet this, it does not meet the criteria and it is opted out, then what the announcement owner needs to do is he or she or they need to opt in their and try to opt in their announcement by proposing an exception request. So the exception request basically means that it's an exception request which talks about why your announcement didn't meet the code freeze, what would happen if your announcement didn't get into this release, what are the drawbacks, and why should we approve your announcement request. After having a detailed discussion in the Slack, the announcement exception request would be either approved or rejected for the announcements freeze. And after the announcements freeze, around 4 weeks or so, there is a gap after which a code freeze will happen. So what happens between announcement freeze and code freeze? All the announcements that have passed the announcement freeze will now work towards getting their code pull request, and test request and documentations PRs get ready. And for the code freeze milestone, they would have to get their code related changes inside the Kubernetes repository. Their pull request should be either in the merge, it should be in the merge ready state. And what I mean by that is it should have the LGTM label and approved label from the SIG-LIDs and the approvers that are needed for that Kubernetes code pull request. So the code freeze is a milestone which tracks all the announcements that have successfully passed the announcements freeze. And it checks if the code related changes pull requests are successfully merged, or are they at least into the merge ready state. And if they are they satisfy those criteria, then it will be successfully tracked for the code freeze. And if they don't satisfy the criteria, that means that if they don't have their code related changes pull request merged, or they don't have the LGTM or approved label on those PRs, then it would be removed from that code freeze milestone. And we as an announcements team will remove that particular announcement from the tracking process for further traction of other teams in the release team. So if an announcement doesn't meet the code freeze criteria and it is removed from the milestone, So what we would need, what the enhancement owner needs to do is, he would need, she or they would need to file an exception request again. So what does an exception request look like? So they would again talk about why was the PR not merged? What are the drawbacks of what are the drawbacks if this announcement didn't get into the particular release, and some other factors. There's a detailed template of what an exception request look like. I'll share that in a bit. And after the exception request is received, under the Slack, the enhancements team and the release team will have a discussion on whether to approve or reject that announcement. And if it is approved, it is then further moved forward to the further tracking process. And if it is not, it is then completely removed from the current 1.28 milestone. So this is what an generally enhancement stream work look like. And yeah, that's the general layout, but it would be it would take quite some time to get into more details of what each thing would look like. So yeah, it's just a general layout. I don't have any images on my slideshows. I just I just saw it. I should include more images.
Yeah, thank you, Tarvra. Does anyone have any questions about enhancement and how the team works? If not, Mansi, if you want to share your screen and walk us through how CI signal works.
Sure. Just a second. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hello everyone, I am a CI Signal Shadow for this release, and I'm going to give you a quick intro of the CI Signal team. So the CI Signal team, as the name suggests, it's a team that continuously monitors our CI for every commit that goes into the Kubernetes code base, and we are responsible for ensuring the quality of the release by continuously monitoring the E2E tests. So as you would think, the CI Signal team plays a crucial role in suggesting if the code that is in the Kubernetes master currently is ready for going into every minor release, as well as the final release that we do. And we try to foster a culture of continuous integration test and a fail fast, fix fast mindset, so that every one of the owning SIG groups is able to take early responsibility of what could be blocking the release. So primarily, we try to look at two dashboards. So the first one is the master informing. I'll quickly go through it. So this is what a master informing dashboard looks like. And usually we try to look at what are the failing tests and what are the flaky tests. So failing tests are the one that we give the utmost attention to, and we try to open up issues as soon as possible. When it comes to the flaky tests on the master informing dashboard, we usually try to observe a pattern for the failing test. So for example, if you look at the first test over here, it has failed one time, but there does not seem to be a pattern to it. If it would fail for a few more times in a row, or if there is any other recurring pattern to it, we try to open up the issue as soon as possible. So this is for the master informing dashboard only. This we try to review it daily. So in our team, every person is given a week that they monitor these dashboards, and they try to open up issues as soon as possible. So for master informing, they would open up an issue if they see a pattern in any of the tests. But there is another dashboard which is called as a master blocking, which is the most important dashboard to block a release, as it tries to run every 3 hours, and it tries to take a gauge at the Kubernetes infrastructure issues as well. So if there is any test that is failing on the master blocking dashboard, that would be given critical attention. Try to open up the issues as soon as possible, and also try to engage the SIGs that are responsible for that test, either through this meeting that we are having right now, or through the Slack channels. So that's what we try to do. And yeah, so these are the two dashboards that we monitor, but I'll post a link to the a detailed difference between these two dashboards. If anyone is interested, posted a link in the chat. And next, so this is the first responsibility that we maintain as a CI signal team. And the second responsibility is giving early go and no-go signals for every minor release that we go through. So for example, we are scheduled to do a 1.28.4 alpha 4 release tomorrow. So it is our responsibility to monitor the informing and blocking dashboards, try to find out all the issues that could be blocking the release, and inform the release branch manager as soon as possible if there is any blocker for the release tomorrow. So that's what we do. And so I was talking about creating issues for the failing test. So I would like to show you an example of how we create the issues. So this is an example of a master blocking job failure. And we try to give as detailed information as possible, try to include all the tests that are failing with a screenshot. We also provide a test grid link, and since we are the first person to look at and triage the issue, we try to give a good enough reason for failure, try to look at the tests and try to look at the logs, and just put out anything that we seem as odd and will help the person who is looking at the issue to fix it. So this is what a good issue would look like. And then we also tag any relevant SIG. So for example, you could see we have tagged SIG storage over here, so that a person from SIG storage could look at it, triage it, and open up a PR to fix it. So that's why I say it's a critical responsibility, so that we can catch any of these issues as early as possible, and also provide triage, like if not very good, a good enough first triage of the issue. And next, we also, as we are going through this process, we also try to understand and fix the test, try to also understand if and what a test is doing, and if it is useful for promotion or demotion in the next release. So this is the link that I'm posting in the chat, is a detailed CI signal handbook. And this is what our CI signal lead would go through during our onboarding process. And it has a very detailed information on how and what to look at, and how to find out what priority should be linked, what SIGs should be tagged in a particular issue. We also have a section for finding out what are the frequent tests that have been failing through the previous release, so that we know what we should give our attention to. Once an issue is fixed, we also try to close that issue. We try to find out if there are any other blockers that could come through that issue, so that we can keep a track of whatever could be blocking the release. So yeah, this is a very detailed handbook. It would also give you information about how to open issues, what pointers to put in the issues, so that it is as useful as possible. We also have a decision tree to find out about the pattern that I was talking about, how to find out if you should open up an issue for a test that is failing. So yeah, this is a detailed handbook that we maintain. Recently, we also did a cleanup on this handbook so that we can keep only the information that is vital to this team. Yeah, so lastly, I would just say that the CI Signature team is responsible for maintaining a sustained focus on test health throughout the release cycle. And we try to, our lead tries to inform and onboard the shadows as much as possible on the test infrastructure tools, and also looking at the test so that we can provide a good enough triage of the issues that we file, and yeah, be useful to the release cycle as much as possible. Okay, that's it from me. Any questions? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Grace. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nancy, for the introduction. All right, folks. Next week we have the bug triage. They will do their intro as well. Should be interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Artharva and Nancy. That was super helpful for everybody. Let me reshare the screen, even though I think we're almost done with the meeting. Anything else, Grace, to add? Or
Yeah, no, that is it. Thank you, everyone, for sharing or giving us a glimpse into your subteam.
Yep. I don't see any updates from SIG scalability, but I'm assuming there's no issues there. Everything else is on track. We're not walking the project boards still, are we? Nope.
Yeah, no.
All right. Does anybody else have anything that wasn't added to the agenda they'd like to discuss? If not, we can end the meeting. All right, let me stop the recording.